I still remember the exact moment the fear began, though at the time it was subtle, almost laughable. It was my first week at Westbridge High as a sophomore transfer, and everything about that school screamed normal. Lockers clanging, the buzz of fluorescent lights, and the distant hum of traffic outside the old brick walls. I was already on edge from being the new kid, sitting alone at lunch, nervously picking at the corner of my sandwich while trying to remember everyone's name. My first few days had been uneventful, almost painfully mundane until the announcement over the PA system came. Lockdown, everyone. Stay in your classrooms and await instructions. The word hit the air like ice water. A few kids laughed nervously. Some shrugged, but my heart dropped. It was too real. Teachers rushed to lock doors and students scrambled for any semblance of cover. I was in room 212, a tiny classroom with peeling paint and a faint smell of mold. Mr. Donnelly, my history teacher, tried to calm everyone, but his hands trembled as he fumbled with the lock on the door. We weren't supposed to move, weren't supposed to look out the windows, just wait. Time stretched like taffy. At first it was quiet, just the occasional cough or rustle of papers. But then I heard it, a soft, deliberate knock on the classroom door. I froze, convinced it must be a student who'd wandered into the hall. I whispered to Mr. Donnelly, who told me it was probably just the wind. But then it came again, 2 knocks this time, not 1, but 2, slow, methodical. My stomach turned. There was no way anyone could have been outside. The hallway was deserted and the lock was secure. Everyone tried to pretend nothing was happening, burying their faces in books or whispering to friends. I kept staring at the door, my ears straining. Then came the whispers. Soft, almost imperceptible, like someone talking just behind the walls. They weren't coherent at first, just fragments. He's here. Don't look. Go away. My classmates didn't hear them, or maybe they refused to. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, each thump echoing in the silence. My rational mind tried to fight it. It's stress, you're imagining things. But the fear had already taken root. I got up, trying to calm myself, and peeked through the small glass window in the door. The hallway was empty, nothing but shadows stretching under the flickering fluorescent lights. But then I saw it, a figure at the far end, thin, hunched, impossibly still. It didn't move like a person, more like a shadow stretched into a grotesque shape, and yet it seemed aware of me. It turned its head slowly, and though I couldn't see a face, I felt its gaze pierce through the glass, straight into my chest. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. That's when the knocking started again, 3 times. Rapid, urgent, almost mocking. I whispered to Mr. Donnelly, but he just shook his head, eyes wide, staring at the door like he could see what I saw. My classmates were oblivious, absorbed in their phones or doodles, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. Then suddenly it stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that presses on your eardrums. And then I heard the whisper again, clearer this time. We're inside. I froze, unable to breathe. My rational brain screamed that it was impossible. They couldn't be inside, the locks held. But the air in the room shifted, heavy and thick, like something invisible had just entered. I tried to speak, but my voice caught. Mr. Donnelly grabbed my shoulder, his face pale, whispering that we had to stay calm. Minutes. Or was it hours? Passed in that terrifying limbo. Every sound seemed amplified. The creak of the ceiling tiles, the scuff of shoes in the hallway, the barely there hum of the lights. Then came the scratching, soft at first, along the walls. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something was moving outside our perception, crawling, searching. And then a knock, a single sharp knock directly behind me. I spun around. No one. The door hadn't moved, the windows showed nothing. But the air behind me felt wrong. I could sense it, a presence pressing against the back of my neck. My skin crawled. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, and then the PA crackled. A voice, calm and mechanical but chilling nonetheless. Lockdown lifted. All clear. The relief that should have washed over me didn't. Something told me it wasn't safe yet. I opened the door carefully, peering into the hallway. Empty. Quiet. Normal, almost mockingly so. My classmates poured out, laughing nervously, shaking their heads at the adrenaline. I wanted to join them, wanted to convince myself it was over, but I couldn't move. That's when I noticed the footprints. They weren't human. They were long, thin, clawed, smeared along the walls and floor in a pattern that made no sense. They didn't lead anywhere. They just were. as if the entity had passed through dimensions we couldn't see. My stomach turned. I pointed them out, but no one saw them. Mr. Donnelly blinked, shook his head, and ushered everyone to the main office. I left room 212 last, my eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Nothing. The school seemed normal, almost annoyingly mundane. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it all. The knocking, the whispers, the scratches. But the footprints lingered in my mind, etched into my memory like scars. Weeks passed. The school resumed normal activity. Teachers smiled, students joked. The rumor mill churned with mundane gossip. But I never forgot that night. Sometimes in empty hallways I swear I hear a knock. 2 knocks, slow and deliberate, and sometimes when the lights flicker just so, I see the shadow in the corner of my eye, a figure hunched, watching, waiting. I told myself to move on, to forget it. But deep down I know it's still there, somewhere in the school, observing, patient. And the worst part? I'll never know what it wants or why it knocked twice, because sometimes it doesn't knock once. It always comes back. I never thought I'd see something like it. Not in real life, not in any horror movie, not even in my worst nightmares. And yet here I am recounting it because no one else will believe me, and I need to get it out before it consumes me completely. It was a typical Thursday at Millstone High. I was sitting in 4th period English, doodling in the margins of my notebook, while Ms. Hargrove lectured about symbolism. I'd just transferred from a small rural school, and everything here was overwhelming. The chatter, the fluorescent lights, the smell of cafeteria food wafting down the hall. I was on edge like I always am when surrounded by so many unfamiliar faces. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. Everyone packed up, chatting and laughing, until I noticed something strange. The classroom across the hall, room 304, looked wrong. It wasn't anything I could immediately place, no students, no teacher, just a faint haze like the air was thicker around it. I shrugged it off. Maybe the class had gone to the library, but when I walked past it, I froze. The door was slightly ajar, and when I peered inside, it wasn't empty. It was full, but in a way that made no sense. The desks were arranged in a spiral, twisting toward the center of the room. The walls were covered in writing, but it wasn't English. It was a language I didn't recognize, jagged and sharp, like it had been scratched into the plaster. Shadows danced across the room, moving as if alive, though no one was there. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and it was gone. The door was closed, normal as ever. Room 304, just another classroom. I shook my head, laughing nervously at myself. I must have been imagining things, but then came the lockdown announcement. Lockdown. Stay in your classrooms. Await instructions. My stomach dropped. I rushed to room 305, just across the hall from the haunted classroom. Miss Thompson, my math teacher, her face pale, locked the door and instructed everyone to stay low. Phones were silenced, whispers replaced laughter. I tried to calm myself, telling myself the room 304 thing was just a trick of my tired eyes. Minutes passed. Then I heard it, a soft scratching noise coming from the wall behind me. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across concrete. My classmates ignored it, but I couldn't. My eyes darted around, searching for the source. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a thump, as if something heavy had landed on the floor above us. I whispered to the kid next to me, but he just shrugged, eyes glued to his phone. I wanted to move to check, but Ms. Thompson had told us to stay put. I obeyed, even as my heart pounded like a jackhammer. Then it started. The voices. Soft, hissing, whispering in the corners of the room. Not just behind me, but inside me. They spoke in that same language I'd seen on the walls of room 304. I didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. Leave or stay forever. I looked around frantically, trying to make sense of it when I noticed the shadows. They weren't cast by the desks or the students. They moved independently, slinking along the walls, stretching toward us, twisting unnaturally. I could feel them crawling along my skin, cold and sticky. Pressing against my bones, I forced myself to stand, to take a step toward the door, but the shadows shifted, forming shapes, tall, thin, impossibly long-limbed figures that mirrored our movements. My classmates still didn't notice, still oblivious to the horror inching closer with each second. A knock sounded, sudden and loud, single, sharp, followed immediately by another, then another like someone or something was counting. I froze. It was coming from inside the room. My rational mind screamed that it couldn't be real, but my body betrayed me, paralyzed with fear. The shadows converged, forming a shape that resembled a student hunched over, whispering in that unholy language. It raised a hand, long, skeletal fingers ending in points, and pointed at me. The room went black. Not a flicker of the lights, but complete darkness thick as wet velvet. My classmates screamed, a chorus of panic, but their voices sounded muffled, distant, like I was underwater. And then I felt it. Cold hands gripping my arms, pulling me toward the center of the classroom, toward the spiral of desks I remembered from room 304. I fought, kicked, screamed, but it was too strong. I don't know how long it lasted. Time lost all meaning. Then suddenly the lights snapped back on. My classmates were still there, sitting frozen, staring at the front of the classroom. The spiral of desks was gone. No shadows, no hands, nothing. Only normal, bland classroom walls. When the lockdown ended, we filed out, shaken but unharmed. I tried to tell someone about what happened, the spiral, the shadows, the whispers, but no one saw anything. Room 304, totally normal. Desks arranged in neat rows, walls blank. Nothing unusual. I started avoiding that hall. I never walked past room 304 alone, but sometimes late at night I dream about it. About the spiral. About the language scratched into the walls, about the hands that tried to pull me in. And when I wake, I sometimes see faint scratches on my arms, tiny lines that weren't there before. I've since transferred schools again, hoping to leave it behind. But I know better. Some classrooms aren't meant to exist. Some shadows don't belong to this world. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear that soft scratching again, in my apartment, on my walls, whispering in a language I never want to understand. Because that classroom wasn't just a room, it was hungry. I used to think that high school lockdowns were overhyped. You know, the drills, the warnings, they felt like adult paranoia dressed up as safety measures. That changed on a Thursday afternoon in my junior year at Crestwood High. I'll never forget it. Not the lockdown itself, but what happened during it. It was around 2:15 p.m. I was in room 119, my chemistry class, grinding through a lab report while the hum of the ventilation system droned in the background. Mr. Patel, our teacher, was correcting a lab mistake when the announcement crackled over the intercom. Lockdown, lockdown. All students and staff, secure your classrooms immediately. I froze. My mind raced. Another drill, probably. But something about the tone of that voice made my stomach knot. The PA voice didn't sound like Mrs. Hargrove, our usual office administrator. It was lower, metallic, distorted in a way that made my hair stand on end. We did as instructed, moving desks to block the door, turning off the lights, huddling in corners. The class chatter died down, replaced by the low rustle of papers and whispered attempts at comfort. I tried to ignore the rising tension, telling myself it was just another drill. But then it happened. The intercom clicked again. Static at first, then a whisper. Alex. Alec. My blood ran cold. That was me. I'm the only Alex in the school. I froze, staring at the speaker in the corner of the ceiling. My classmates thought it was someone joking, trying to scare me, and laughed nervously. I wanted to laugh too, but the hair on my neck bristled. The voice wasn't playful, it was deliberate and patient, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Alex, look at the back of the room. I swallowed hard. Slowly I turned, and there it was. A figure hunched, impossibly thin, standing in the shadow where the emergency exit should have been. Only it wasn't there when the lights were on. I squinted, but the air seemed distorted around it like heat waves above asphalt. Its head tilted unnaturally, too far to the side, and the faintest outline of a smile stretched impossibly wide. No one else saw it. I was sure of it. The figure didn't move like a human, yet it felt alive, aware, hungry. I blinked, and it wasn't gone. It was closer. Then the intercom whispered again, this time multiple voices layering together. Alex, come to us, Alex. The walls seemed to pulse with the sound, vibrating through my bones. My classmates were panicking now, some trying to call their parents, some crying silently, but I couldn't take my eyes off the figure. Every instinct screamed to run, but the door was blocked with desks and my legs felt like lead. Then came the scratching. Low, rhythmic, like claws scraping the linoleum floor. It was coming from the ceiling, from above the intercom, from inside the walls. My head snapped toward the sound, and I realized the voice had changed, distorted further, now chanting my full name over and over, faster and faster until it merged into static, a wall of sound that pressed down on my chest. I dove behind a desk, covering my ears, praying for it to stop. The room went deathly quiet for a heartbeat. Then the lights flickered. When they stabilized, the figure was gone. Relief washed over me briefly, until I noticed the notes on the chalkboard. They weren't written by anyone I knew. Words scratched in my handwriting, but words I had never written. We are in every room. We are in the walls. We are waiting for you. My heart pounded as I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone had hacked the intercom. Maybe it was some sick joke, but the message wasn't just in the chalk. I could feel it crawling along the walls, brushing my skin, whispering in my mind. My classmates had stopped noticing anything strange. Only I could feel it. Only I could see it. Then the intercom clicked again, this time a single word, almost gentle. Follow. The door burst open. A shadow flickered across the threshold, and I swear, I could see the distorted reflection of the figure in the glass of the exit door. My classmates started screaming, running into the hall, but I couldn't move. My legs refused to obey. The voice, the walls, the shadow, it all called me, tugged at me like some invisible chain wrapping around my soul. I blacked out. When I woke, I was outside the school, surrounded by police and paramedics. Everyone was talking about a false alarm, a glitch in the intercom system. There was no lockdown. There was no figure. The walls of room 119 were normal. The chalkboard was clean. My classmates claimed I had a panic attack and muttered nonsense about names being called over the intercom. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. Sometimes, late at night, my phone buzzes with a notification from no one, and a whisper comes through the speaker, repeating my name. And sometimes when I drive past Crestwood High, I swear I see a figure in the window of room 119, hunched, waiting, smiling. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's attached to me, and I don't know if I'll ever escape it. But I do know one thing. Every time I hear a voice over an intercom, every time I hear my name called when no one is there, I remember that Thursday. And I know that the thing in the walls is still waiting, and it knows where I am.